It was an ordinary winter day in the remote village, nestled in the deep forests, far from the bustle of the world. The wind howled through the trees, a relentless force that seemed to pierce through the bones. Snow lay thick and heavy on the ground, covering everything in a blanket of white. The kind of snow that kept people inside their homes by the warmth of the fire, with nothing to do but wait for the storm to pass. Henry had lived here his entire life. He knew the land, the animals, the weather, everything about the harsh environment that surrounded his little cabin. The winters were brutal, but he had always managed to survive, just like the other villagers. They were accustomed to the cold, to the silence of the mountains, and to the occasional encounter with wildlife. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see. As Henry trudged through the thick snow, his boots crunching with each step, something caught his eye in the distance. It was a shadow, large and dark, moving slowly across the white landscape. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a reflection off the snow, but the shape became clearer as he drew closer. A bear. But not just any bear. This one was different. The creature was staggering, its massive body almost stumbling as it moved, its fur matted with ice and snow. It looked weak, far from the mighty predator Henry was used to seeing in these parts. Its movements were slow, sluggish, and it seemed to be struggling, each step more labored than the last. Henry froze in his tracks. His hand instinctively reached for the rifle slung over his shoulder. He had seen plenty of bears in his life, but this one was different. This one was desperate. The bear's eyes locked onto his with an intensity that sent a chill down Henry's spine. It was not the cold, calculating stare of a predator. No, this was something else. This was the gaze of a creature in distress, a creature that needed help. Henry's breath caught in his throat. What was wrong with the bear? He took a cautious step forward, his heartbeat quickening. Was it injured? Was it sick? But before he could even make a decision, the bear let out a low, guttural sound. It was not a growl, but something softer, more plaintive. The bear raised a paw, slowly, deliberately, and placed it on the door of Henry's cabin. It then looked back up at him, its eyes wide with something Henry could only describe as begging. Henry's mind raced. Bears didn't act like this. They didn't beg for help. They didn't show vulnerability. He had lived long enough in these mountains to know that animals, especially predators like bears, operated on instinct. But this was different. This was a plea, a silent cry for help. Without thinking, Henry found himself moving closer. His mind was flooded with conflicting emotions: fear, concern, confusion. He had always been taught to stay away from wild animals, especially bears. But this one was different. This one was not attacking, it was asking for help. The moment the door creaked open, the bear took a tentative step inside, its body shivering from the cold. It didn't growl or lunge. It simply entered, its massive frame filling the small cabin. Henry stood there, staring at the creature in disbelief. What was going on? Why was this bear here, in his home, seeking shelter? It collapsed onto the floor, its body crumpling as if the weight of the cold had finally taken its toll. Henry's heart raced. He looked down at the bear, its fur covered in ice, its breath shallow and labored. He could see the signs now. The bear was not just cold, it was exhausted, maybe even injured. But there was something more, something that Henry couldn't quite put his finger on. The bear was not just asking for warmth, it was asking for something more. Something Henry wasn't ready to face. He knelt down next to the bear, his hands shaking. What should he do? The animal's pleading eyes stared up at him, and for a moment, Henry felt a strange sense of connection, as if the creature had come here not just to escape the cold, but to deliver a message that would reveal itself only when the time was right. The warmth of the cabin contrasted sharply with the chill of the world outside. The fire crackled in the corner, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Henry sat near the bear, his eyes never leaving the animal's still form. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Why had the bear come here? What did it want? He could hear its labored breathing, the soft rise and fall of its chest, and yet something about the whole situation felt off. The bear was not just cold, it was desperate. The cabin was eerily quiet except for the sound of the fire and the wind howling outside. Henry leaned forward, his heart pounding as he tried to make sense of everything. He had never seen anything like this before. The bear had come to him, not as a threat, but as a creature in need of something he didn't understand. Something was terribly wrong. As he sat there watching the bear, he noticed something strange. There was a faint trail of blood on the floor, leading out the door. Henry's stomach twisted into knots. The blood was fresh, and it seemed to be leading directly from where the bear had collapsed. But how? Had it been injured before it came here? Or had something happened after it arrived? His mind raced with possibilities. Could the bear have been involved in some kind of attack? Was it running from something? Or someone? Suddenly the door creaked open and Henry's heart stopped. The cold air poured into the room, sending a shiver down his spine. He glanced over at the bear, whose eyes were now half closed, its body still. The creature was exhausted, almost lifeless, but there was something about its stillness that was unnerving. Henry quickly closed the door, trying to block out the chill that had suddenly flooded the room. But then he realized the bear had come here not just for shelter, but for protection. There was something out there, something dangerous, something that had chased the bear to his door. And the blood trail, the blood that seemed to be leading away from the bear, was not a random occurrence. The bear hadn't just been injured in the wilderness. It had been hurt, perhaps by something far more menacing. The question that gnawed at Henry's mind was simple. What had this bear seen out there, in the dark wilderness? What had it been running from? He slowly stood up, his legs shaky, as he approached the door once more. He glanced back at the bear, now lying motionless on the floor. The creature's eyes were half closed, but it wasn't dead. It was waiting for something, or someone, to help it. And just as Henry reached for the door, he heard it, a sound that made his blood run cold. A low growl, distant but unmistakable. Something was out there in the dark, something that the bear had been running from. And Henry had just unknowingly invited it inside. The danger wasn't over. It had just begun.